Hi everyone, this is Dr. Victoria Nalule, and in today's webinar, we're going to be discussing about artisanal and small-scale mining in Kenya. So with me is Ms. Cynthia Opakas from TripleOKlaw, a law firm in Kenya, but she's also a master's student at the University of Dundee at the Center for Energy, Petroleum, Mineral and Policy. So before we start with the discussion, I'd like Ms. Cynthia to briefly introduce herself.
Thank you, Dr. Nalule. As you've correctly mentioned, my name is Cynthia Opakas. I am an associate at the law firm of TripleOKlaw LLP in Nairobi, Kenya. I am also undertaking my Master of Laws at the Center of Energy, Petroleum, Mineral Law and Policy at the University of Dundee. I have a background in dispute resolution, which is arbitration, and right now we are looking to also grow our extractive sector, which will have a focus on both energy and minerals. So today we'll have working on a chapter on artisanal and small-scale mining in Kenya, which I think somebody's mic is on. Just mute. Thanks. So I am working on a chapter on artisanal and small-scale mining in Kenya, which shall be the focus of our discussions today. And we look forward to an engaging discourse.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. So without wasting any time, I'd like us to go through the key issues with respect to ASM in Kenya and also the key highlights from your book chapter. And I think you can go ahead and share your presentation with us.
So I'm just going to share my slides, which will highlight basically the issues and the opportunities in small-scale and artisanal mining in Kenya, which also transcend across many areas in sub-Saharan Africa that practice artisanal and small-scale mining. That is just the coat of arms and a basic introductory slide. So some basic facts about mining in Kenya, is that obviously it's a country in East Africa with a population of about 48 million people. And we have both metallic and non-metallic minerals. We do have probably a fun fact that many people may not know is Kenya is the largest producer and exporter of soda ash in Africa. But that being said, the mineral sector in Kenya is still highly underexplored because the attention has majorly been on other industries such as agriculture, but now it's gaining a lot of momentum and a lot of government attention to develop the mining sector in Kenya. That said, it is important to also note that the mining sector in Kenya is dominated by artisanal and small-scale miners. You may ask then, what is artisanal mining? Because I understand not everybody is a lawyer and not everybody is in the extractives industry. So artisanal mining is mining using crude or rudimentary methods. This means these people use everything from hammers to shovels to basins to extract these mineral resources. There is a small or slight distinction with small-scale mining, where it's slightly more mechanized, but not to the extent of large-scale mining. And because the mining industry in Kenya is dominated by ASM, which is artisanal and small-scale mining, then there are not so many large-scale mining activities going on in Kenya, except the ones that have been happening for a long time, say fluorspar and soda ash. But now we have it's now growing with, say, companies like Base Titanium in Kwale undertaking large-scale mining activities. So the legal framework for mining in Kenya, obviously, we start with the Constitution because it's the supreme law of the land. We now have a Mining Act, number 12 of 2016. This is really a big development for the legal framework, mining legal framework in Kenya, because before enactment of the Mining Act of 2016, the last Mining Act was the one of 1940. So 7 decades later, now we have another mining law, which really, that was pretty much outdated. And we have various other acts, which influence or affect the mining industry in Kenya, which also affect the artisanal and small-scale mining industry. This is such as the Occupational Safety Act, the Environmental Management and Coordination Act, and subsidiary to the Mining Act, we also have regulations such as the licensing and permitting regulations. So this is important to basically just mention who owns minerals in Kenya. This is a constitutional provision which has been supplemented and also operationalized by the Mining Act 2016, which provides that minerals and the land-bearing minerals shall belong to the state and shall be held by the national government in trust for the Kenyan people. On to the next slide. So the Mining Act in Kenya categorizes the industry into two sectors. First of all is large-scale operations, and we have now small-scale operations. The focus for this webinar shall be small-scale operations and artisanal mining. So for small-scale operations, previously the 1940 Mining Act did not recognize small-scale operations and mining and artisanal mining, which this does not mean that these activities were not happening. They were happening, but they were basically illegal. Yeah, so and a very informal sector continues to be, but they are basically illegal. The critical difference with the Mining Act 2016 is it now recognizes artisanal mining as a lawful act that the participants of industry can benefit also from that regulation. So in small-scale operations, the Act has sort of made it formal such that people can apply for retention for reconnaissance permits, prospecting permits, and mining, and ultimately mining permits. Sorry, that's retention should be reconnaissance, I beg your pardon. So reconnaissance permits apply to the search of minerals through non-intrusive or non-invasive techniques such as geophysical surveys and geochemical surveys. And then prospecting permits, when you apply for a prospecting permit under the small-scale operations, then you're looking for something more specific. You're looking for a certain mineral. That's when you now apply for a prospecting permit. And a mining permit ultimately now gives you the permission to extract the resource. So you will notice within the Act that for large-scale operations, what the government gives people are licenses, and for smaller scale operations, which are small-scale operations and artisanal mining, they're given permits. So reconnaissance permits, mentioned a bit of this, grants the people, for you to apply for a reconnaissance permit under small-scale operations, you have to be one, a citizen of Kenya, and if you're a company, then you have to have at least 60% local shareholding. So this has been a bit of a challenge, because even for the companies that now permeate the mining market, that the small-scale operations in Kenya, there have been challenges in certain areas where you'll find that on paper, indeed, there is a majority shareholding of Kenyans, but the local communities do not actually benefit from the resources or from benefit that this activity gives. So once you get your reconnaissance permit, you obviously have an obligation to comply with the terms and conditions of your permit, as well as to do everything that is possible to protect the environment, which, as we shall see a little bit later, environmental concerns are critical to the mining industry in Kenya. The Act also provides that for those who get or apply for prospecting permits, the permit shall not exceed 5 years. The permit shall not exceed 5 years and is renewable once. So the permit area is also limited to 25 contiguous blocks. And similarly, you are expected to do everything in your power to protect the environment. So as the Mining Act in Kenya gives a lot of power to the Cabinet Secretary. The Cabinet Secretary in Kenya is the equivalent of the minister to grant these licenses. But there are checks and balances because the Act also establishes a Mineral Rights Board. And this Mineral Rights Board is the entity that advises the minister on the grant, revocation, and renewal of mineral rights, under which these permits for small-scale and artisanal mining apply. So the mining permits, once you have prospected, and also another thing to mention under the Kenya's Mining Act is that it's on a first-come, first-served basis. So there are no situations where you'll have two people having fighting over a right. So the first person also has once you prospect and you discover something, you have the right of first refusal. So you'll have the first opportunity to exploit or extract the resource. So for the mining permits for small-scale operations in Kenya, is given for a period of 5 years and is renewable once for an equal term or the remainder of the life of the mine. So if you exhaust your 5 years and you apply for renewal, and the mine say has a lifetime of 10, 20 years, you can only get 5, or if it has 3, you'll get 3 years, whichever is shorter, but your permit will be precise on this, and it will state with exactitude for how long you can extract the resource. The area is also limited to 2 contiguous blocks. And now on to artisanal mining. So as I have stated, the Mining Act in Kenya sort of distinguishes small-scale operations and artisanal mining. Although practically speaking, there is sort of a convergence in the nature of how these activities are undertaken. You'll see in small-scale operations, the Act gives citizens permission to apply for the permits, but it also gives corporate citizens that same opportunity. So how the corporate citizens will undertake small-scale operations obviously will vary from how the individuals will undertake small-scale operations. So many times you will find that the individual small-scale operation practitioners will have some sort of similarities, many for that matter, with artisanal mining. So to mention is that the law now, I've already mentioned, the law now recognizes artisanal mining, so it is a lawful activity in Kenya. And there is a whole debate about formalization of artisanal and small-scale mining in countries that practice this, particularly the focus now is in Sub-Saharan Africa, which is a very resource-rich area. So the first step is formalization, which is recognition of this rights in our laws. So the artisanal mining in Kenya also brings in the county government now, because large-scale mining is a preserve of the national government, but now the Act brings in the county government, because Kenya has a devolved system of government in which we have the national government and county governments. So in artisanal mining, the Cabinet Secretary sets up in each county an office of representative of the Directorate of Mines. So the Directorate of Mines has an office in the national government, but now for purposes of artisanal mining, the Directorate will have an office in the counties. And also subsequent to this, the county now will set up an artisanal mining committee. The respective counties will set up artisanal mining committees. And the purposes of these committees will be to advise the director, who is now a national government representative, on the issue of licenses. I think somebody's microphone is on. You could just please mute your microphones. Thank you. Yes, so the artisanal mining committees, which are established under the county governments, now advise the director, who is an officer, a representative of the national government, on the issuance and revocation and renewal of licenses. So right now in Kenya, artisanal miners are eligible to apply for permits, which are issued for 3 years, renewable ones as well. So once you renew your license, you can only graduate to small-scale operations, which has other limitations as well. So obviously, this means that it is now illegal, not that it is not happening, it is illegal to engage and participate in artisanal mining without a permit. But of course, it is happening. So this now we have gone through the first step, which is incorporating artisanal mining in our laws. But also, formalization is not just about, we see in so many industries, formalization is not just about having legislation. Yeah, that is the first step, but what is actually practically happening? We see with artisanal mining in some areas, for instance, an area like Migori, where there is gold mining in Kenya, you see some of the artisanal miners say, if I apply for my permits and exhaust my 6 years, this is the only economic activity I know or understand. And once again, I apply for a small-scale operations permit and exhaust that. And then what do I do after? I do not qualify, or I cannot afford to go to the large-scale operations. So there is quite some limitation to that extent. The other thing with formalization in terms of incorporating this activity in legislation is the fact that illiteracy is an actual issue in this activity, because it is an activity practiced in predominantly rural areas in Kenya. So you will find there are many people, the government through the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining now is doing a lot of sensitization programs to just make people aware. It is a good thing that the ministry there is a ministry now obviously targeted to this, but obviously the ministry is merged with petroleum again. So there is sort of some divided attention. But some people do not even know that these laws exist, that these opportunities exist. And the other challenge is that the government has now established a mining cadastre portal, which is an online portal where you apply for your mining licenses and permit. So you ask yourself, I mean, obviously, how many of these people can be able to access it? The sound of it to the people in the rural areas, it sounds so tedious and so complicated. So most of them will not just bother to apply for the permits. The other thing is that the implementation of the formalization and everything that the Act prescribes has been quite slow. For instance, the establishment of the artisanal mining committees, out of the 47 counties in Kenya, not all of them have minerals though. Out of them, only three have established the artisanal mining committees. So we are looking at 2016 up to now, we are still lagging quite behind in terms of implementation of these frameworks. So in as much as artisanal mining faces a lot of challenges, it obviously has many opportunities, and it is important that we support this sector because it creates employment for many people, and creating employment goes a long way into satisfying the sustainable development goals. For example, goal number 1 is on alleviation of poverty. Goal number 2 is on eradication of hunger. So directly and indirectly, there's a goal also on education and healthcare. Directly and indirectly, this activity of ASM rather goes to support such long-term visions also, which are enhanced, witnessed in the African mining vision, which recognizes that we need that artisanal and small-scale mining in sub-Saharan, in Africa, really has a lot of potential, and we need to support this industry so that we can harness this potential. So obviously, because it creates employment, it supports other basic needs, food, shelter. These people are able to earn a livelihood and support their families and educate their children through this economy. And in places, say in Taita Taveta and Migori in Kenya, you'll see a lot of people wanting to engage in mining because in as much as it is on a small scale, they will say that the income is slightly more than what you get from agriculture and fishing. So it also helps these communities to diversify on their sources of income. So Artisanal mining has a lot of challenges in as much as it is an industry that we want to support and want to grow. First of all, the first challenge is the literacy levels, and not even for the miners themselves. Not all of them want the sector to be formalized, because some of them just have suspicion, government suspicion, and some of them think if we formalize this sector, then it will bring a tax burden and some of those things which really they wouldn't want to attract. Artisanal and small-scale mining industry in Kenya, as it does in many areas, also is the bedrock or a proper breeding ground for so many environmental and human rights challenges. For instance, quarry management is a problem. In many areas, you find standing water, a lot of stagnant water, which is breeding for mosquitoes, and you find those areas. Say Migori has very high rates of malaria. There's water contamination. So water contamination as well. You will find, say, for people who practice gold mining, Migori is a good example in Nyanza in Kenya. They use explosives and mercury to amalgamate this gold, which is obviously not a safe metal. So we have seen instances where you find that it affects the aquatic life because it's near Lake Victoria. It affects the aquatic life, and there have been instances where there's mass deaths of fish, and this is also not safe. The use of mercury. It is important to mention that Kenya has also ratified the Minamata Convention against the use of mercury since 2013, but it is an easy way out because also the government does not do a lot to follow up on what these miners are doing. So because it's an easy way out for them to carry out the amalgamation, they just use the mercury. So that leads me to the next challenge, which is health and safety. So because of the use of mercury, it has been really concluded to be a very unsafe metal. So you'll find many of them have kidney problems, respiratory issues, reproductive issues, and it becomes a vicious cycle of poverty because now you earn this and spend it in healthcare. So that is one other challenge. Also, in health and safety, many of these people cannot afford protective equipment, gumboots. Dr. Nalule has done a video on salt mining in Lake Katwe in Uganda. And you will see it is also a similar case in Magarini in Kilifi County in Kenya, where you see people get bans from salt mining. They get bans because of salt mining. There are also gender-specific consequences or effects, such as which affect mostly women and their reproductive systems. Salt mining, which releases ammonia gas and subsequently hydrogen sulfide, which has led several women to have uterus inflammations. Some of them have even had their uteruses removed because of the effects of this ammonia gas. So health and safety is also a big issue in Kenya. Also, there's the gender equity in Kenya and in many areas. We see ASM, an advantage is it is one of the industries that enables women to participate, but they do not have equal power within the industry because you'll see their roles will be relegated to cooking and doing manual jobs within the industry. So the other thing is also child labor because we see a lot of people, because it's quick money, at least they say so, it's quick money. So some children leave school, some are forced by their parents to leave school and participate in these activities. And of course, ASM is labor intensive. That's the other characteristic of, because you can imagine you're using a shovel to crack stones to get a mineral resource. So it's labor intensive. So it takes long. So these children obviously cannot balance. So these are just some of the challenges that we witness among many other challenges. For instance, the land challenges and compensation, always having tussles between communities and owners of the land and the resources. So in a nutshell, that is what the book chapter will seek to discuss, and you should watch out for the book chapter. Thank you, Dr. Nalule.
All right, thank you very much, Cynthia. I see we are running out of time. So we shall take in a few questions. I don't know if any of the participants have questions, but as they think about their questions, I'd like us to explore more on the issue of gender justice, because last time you were actually a moderator for the gender justice webinar we held. And with respect to salt mining, the example you've given in Kenya, do you think the government is taking any initiatives to ensure that the women who are being affected by these ASM activities, now for instance, salt mining, are there initiatives from the government to help these women?
Yes, indeed, there are initiatives by the government. In 2020, there are initiatives by both the government and private institutions, such as the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. There is also an association which is doing a brilliant job on gender justice. It's called the Association of Women in Energy and Extractives in Kenya, in terms of financial literacy, and just some of them donate protective equipment. But I would say it is not to the maximum extent, because you will find, to the maximum possible extent, because you will find so many of these women, not all of them, the government will say, okay, we cannot give all of you, or we cannot give to the acceptable minimum standard. So there is really a gap. And I think the major initiative in terms of protecting women in salt mining particularly has been by private organizations. Although there was a bit of an upsurge on this issue in 2020 in Kilifi County, which was merged also with the land issues. And I believe the matter is even before courts, and the land issue is before the National Land Commission for consideration.
All right, and then my last question, I don't know, is there anyone with a question? Okay, and we're running out of time. So my last question is, according to your book, what are the key issues the government of Kenya should consider with respect to, first, formalizing ASM, and then second, tackling the various challenges? Because I know there are already initiatives, the law is in place, but what are the practical issues that really need to be considered by the government?
I think the implementation really is what the state needs to focus on. And especially for this industry, to just give the county governments a bigger place and a bigger position in the industry, because they are closer to the people. So it is easier for them to address these issues such as health and safety, and to sensitize people on the opportunities and on their rights, both the various legal frameworks, because all these challenges are also regulated. The gender issues are regulated constitutionally, both in the constitution and statute. The health and safety issues, they're all regulated. So first of all, we need to sensitize the people, and we need to, through the county governments, because at least the first step is we've given the county governments the power to engage in ASM. So just to make maximum use of the county governments to implement the legal frameworks that are already there.
All right, we have a question from Abdul Abubakar. He's asking, regarding administration, what mechanism is used in managing the mining sector, both at the county and national levels? And then the last question is, are there any regulatory proposals to streamline the industry? So those will be our last questions so that you can attend your class.
Thank you. So administratively, large-scale mining is mostly under the national government. So there is the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining, which manages that. And then at the county level, the counties have established ministries of mining just to support this function, and to support the office, the committee, and the Directorate of Mines office, which is technically national government function. So the systems are quite it's not optimum, I would say, but because the act is quite young. In all fairness, it's a 2016. It's a 2016 act. So the county governments most of them have established ministries of mining, which now help to support the communities under which they serve. The other question was on regulatory frameworks, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. So for regulatory frameworks, I believe there is a gap. For instance, the Act does not state with specificity the area under which somebody can conduct artisanal mining. So the permitting regulations of 2016 limited that to one cadastral block, but then the amendment in 2017 leaves that as a gap as well. The other thing is the Act also does not, the Act only provides for a mineral dealer's license and a mineral dealer's permit. So for the permits, those ones are able to sell the resources locally, but the Act does not promote state with specificity in terms of prices and the sale and the trade, the mineral trade, if I may use that word, so that we also the artisanal miners are not exploited. Those are some of the gaps that we will be addressing in the chapter.
All right, so this marks the end of our webinar. Thank you very much, Cynthia. I've shared the link to your video with the participants. Also share with all your contacts who have missed out on the webinar, and remind them to subscribe for more videos on energy and mining featuring different experts. So this marks the end of our webinar. Thank you very much, Cynthia. And our participants, look out for the book chapter on artisanal small-scale mining in Kenya, authored by Cynthia. Have a lovely day and enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.